Hello everyone. We are continuing with our monthly theme of covenant. We're on week 2. I'm going to begin with some opening words by Reverend Robert Walsh. We can help people find a path toward spiritual wholeness, toward integrity, love, and purpose. We can celebrate loving, faithful covenants between people, in families, and in the church. We can bring the healing spirit of the church and its traditions into the presence of the suffering and dying. We can proclaim the truth of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We can help carry forward a living religious community that covenants to walk together in freedom and responsibility. We can speak out for justice and peace. We can help feed the hungry and shelter the homeless. To change the world, we need the ministry of everyone. Today's chalice lighting is by Reverend Lucas Hergert. I am now going to light the chalice in front of me. If you have a chalice or a candle at home that you would like to light as well, please join me. Love is the doctrine of this church. Our faith in each other is its sacrament. Working for justice and living with compassion is its prayer. Reverently, we covenant together to stand on the side of love, to heal and not to harm, and to share hope with each other and with the world. I'm going to read you a few readings. The first is called Popularity by Reverend David O. Rankin. To escape the trap of public acclaim, an authentic church should advertise as follows. Our worship is not an entertainment. Our congregation is not an audience. Our music is not a concert performance. Our preaching is not a trivial comfort. Our theology is not a marketing strategy. Our counseling is not a promise of prosperity. Our church is not a business enterprise. Our ministry is not a cult of personality. Our community is not a gathering of sheep. Our success is not a membership statistic. In fact, it is probably better to be disliked, offensive, and scandalous. Even booing is preferable to mass applause, for no vision is worthwhile without the risk of rebuke. Every truth is born out of painful criticism. Love itself is crucifying. The second reading is called The Failure of Rugged Individualism by M. Scott Peck. The problem, indeed the total failure, of the ethic of rugged individualism is that it runs with only one side of the paradox, incorporates only one half of our humanity. It recognizes that we are called to individuation, power, and wholeness, but it denies entirely the other part of the human story, that we can never fully get there, and that we are of necessity, in our uniqueness, weak and imperfect creatures who need each other. In our culture of rugged individualism, in which we generally feel that we dare not be honest about ourselves, even with the person in the pew next to us, we bandy about the word community. We apply it to almost any collection of individuals, a town, a church, a synagogue, a fraternal organization, an apartment complex, a professional association, regardless of how poorly these individuals communicate with each other. It is a false use of the word. If we are going to use the word meaningfully, we must restrict it to a group of individuals who have learned how to communicate honestly with each other, whose relationships go deeper than the masks of composure, and who have developed some serious commitment. Today's sermon is called The Company of Strangers by Reverend Kirk Lodeman Copeland. In a sense, the people in the world divide neatly into two parts: those we know and everyone else. The second group represents the category we call strangers and symbolizes the unknown. The Greek word that means foreigner or stranger is xenos. It was used first in the works of Homer. It has included a range of nuanced meanings from enemy stranger to ritual friend. Xenos is the root of the Greek word xenia, which means hospitality, and specifically refers to the generosity and courtesy shown to those who are far from home. Xenia was also used to indicate a guest friendship. The theme of xenia, of hospitality, appears many times in the Odyssey. Like Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire, Odysseus depended time and time again on the kindness of strangers as he transversed the long journey home from Troy. The complexity of xenia is due to the fact that xenos can mean guest or host, as well as stranger or friend. These dual meanings underlined the reciprocity of relationship that was expressed in the role of hospitality in ancient Greece. Richard Rittenbaugh writes, Xenia, or obligatory hospitality, was practiced all over the ancient world. It seems to have been quite a serious matter in the Middle East and Mediterranean areas. A person was obligated if he found out that a person did not have a place to sleep or was hungry, to ask that person into his own home. The Hebrews, Arabs, Greeks, and the Romans all practiced some form of xenia. In his book, The Company of Strangers, Parker Palmer reminds us that the root of the word hospitality is hosps, which means both guest and host. The reciprocity is inescapable linguistically, but not in terms of how we treat others. We teach our children to fear strangers, those adults that they do not know. Perhaps this is a wise teaching to try and keep our children safe, but the teaching becomes problematic when it persists into adulthood. Such fear makes it difficult to build robust communities or to see diversity as an asset to be celebrated instead of a reality to be avoided. It also makes it nearly impossible to construct a dynamic public life that actually promotes the common good. As Palmer writes, the word public, as I understand it, contains a vision of our oneness, our unity, our interdependence upon one another. Despite the fact that we are strangers to one another, we occupy a common space, share common resources, have common opportunities, and must somehow learn to live together. To acknowledge that one is a member of the public is to recognize that we are all members of one another. The practice of hospitality is essential if our congregations are going to flourish. There are some who regard a church as a private space. With such an attitude, a church would tend not to be welcoming of newcomers, since they are strangers. Churches, including liberal churches, that are growing, do so because of many different things. One surely is their practice of hospitality, by which they welcome the stranger. The practice of hospitality is part of the external covenant, the promises that our congregations make with the world. Parker writes, hospitality means letting the stranger remain a stranger, while offering acceptance nonetheless. It means honoring the fact that strangers already have a relationship, rooted in our common humanity, without having to build on intimate interpersonal knowledge, without having to become friends. It means valuing the strangeness of the stranger, even letting the stranger speak a language you cannot speak or sing a song you cannot join with, resisting the temptation to reduce the relation to some lowest common denominator, since all language and music is already human. It means meeting the stranger's needs while allowing him or her to simply be, without attempting to make the stranger over into a modified version of ourselves. I view a Unitarian Universalist church as having a spiritual center and a civic circumference, which is to say that it occupies both private and public space. In terms of hospitality, we welcome the stranger into our midst. In terms of justice, we make common cause with those in the public square who care about the issues we care about. This requires working with different groups of strangers over time, because our allies in the public square will change as the issues we are working on will change. As the Englishman Lord Palmerston says of England, we have no eternal allies, and we have no perpetual enemies. This observation is at the heart of community organizing and requires that we be hospitable to all. Parker Palmer writes that in a vibrant and compassionate public life, strangers come into daily contact, grow accustomed to each other, learn to solve problems which the public life poses, and enrich and expand each other's lives. The challenge in our time are those who promote fear, spurn the common good, and turn stranger against stranger. Parker believes that the church has a special role in America in renewing our public life. It can only happen if we are prepared to enter into the company of strangers. The closing words to which I am going to extinguish the chalice are by Reverend Brian Keeley. I am now going to extinguish the chalice in front of me. If you also have a flame in front of you, you can blow that out as well. The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet. Thank you for joining me today, and have a great rest of your week.